Hi, I'm Joel Bloom, president of New Jersey Institute of Technology. At NJIT, we believe that not only our students, but all citizens need to be informed about the issues facing higher education. As New Jersey's Science and Technology University, NJIT is proud to support the important programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Funding for this edition of State of Affairs with Steve Adubato has been provided by Holy Name Medical Center. This place is different. New Jersey Resources. NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey. The New Jersey Education Association. International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825. And by Community Food Bank of New Jersey. Promotional support provided by Insider NJ. And by NJ Advance Media.
This is State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. We're coming to you from beautiful Newark, New Jersey, NJTV Studios. Camelia Valdes is prosecutor in Passaic County. Born and raised where?
Born in the Bronx, raised in Newark.
See that? I always like to say you're from Newark.
I'm from Newark, but I was born in the Bronx.
Just checking.
Okay.
I got to tell you, you and I have had so many conversations off air, on air,
Yes.
about a whole range of issues. Right before we got in the air, I said gun violence, gang violence in your county and also in the state. Are they the same thing?
Well, no, not if you look at the numbers. If you look at our numbers, our homicide numbers tend to stay within 20 to 22 or so a year. Our shootings, however, which to me is a greater indicator of the violence problem, are always higher. And that's really the number that we look at. Because if you have a victim that survived, it could be that St. Joe's did the awesome job that it always does.
We're talking about St. Joseph's Healthcare, St. Joseph's Hospital in Patterson. Let me ask you this. People connect Passaic County. That's Patterson. It's more than that.
It's more than that. It's Wayne, it's Clifton, it's our suburban areas, it's our rural areas.
It's Passaic City.
It's Passaic City. It's such a diverse county. So many things going on. Cities, suburbs, rural areas. We see it all.
It's interesting. People use the word prosecutor. They don't know exactly what it means. To your friends and family, how do you describe the job?
I talk to them about it in the context of service, public service, because prosecutors, good prosecutors, are not just looking to put people in jail. They're looking to remedy problems. They're looking to serve. They're looking to be receptive and responsive to what's happening with communities. So prosecutors are a jack of all trades. We're trying to keep people safe. That's the bottom line.
You know, it's interesting. You've got I love your sense of humor, particularly when you're dealing with such issues, challenging issues. You talked about how you came into this job. You know, I saw a piece of video. I don't know, maybe you were speaking somewhere and you sent me some. Maybe I caught it somewhere in social media. I don't know how I saw it. But you were talking to some folks about how you came into this job. Describe the circumstances around that, why that's so interesting.
So it's interesting because I was minding my business at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the opportunity to become Passaic County Prosecutor arose. And I never thought it would happen because at the time I was an assistant U.S. attorney hired by U.S. Attorney Christie, and the appointing governor at the time was Governor Corzine. So, and I'm an independent, so I wasn't really sure that the politics were going to line up. But a wise Latina mentor of mine said to me, these jobs don't come for us, so you should at least try. Because at the time, there had never been a Latina county prosecutor in the state of New Jersey.
Never.
Never. So in 2009, I said, well, if I don't get it, I still have a job that I absolutely love. And if I do get it, it'll be another opportunity to serve. And so now, 10 years later, here I am.
You know, with a mutual friend, Micheline Davis, you and I have been involved in a lot of conversations. One of them, I remember, was on women in leadership, particularly women of color.
Yes.
What particular responsibility do you feel being the first in this role, particularly for others who maybe coming up right now,
Yes.
and simply don't see the possibilities, you say what?
I say do the work. I say do the work and be very good at the work. And if it's challenging work, look at it as an opportunity to really show the world what you can do. I have experienced racism here and there during my career. Somebody finds out I'm Dominican, suddenly they're asking me about some Dominican baseball player. I'm like, it's a big country. We don't really all know each other.
Yeah, right.
But gender bias is something that I experience almost daily, if not weekly, because it's almost as if I can be forgiven for being Hispanic, but not forgiven for being a woman, and a woman in charge.
What does it look like?
What it looks like is initially distraction. Initially, it's like, is she smart enough to do this job? Does she have the right temperament to do this job? That's what it looks like initially. But when we really get down to brass tacks, we get it done.
You're hardcore in that way. And you know, part of your upbringing here in the city of Newark
Yes.
has helped mold you into who you are and what you are as a leader. How so?
Well, I am, and I say, you know, I'm a little bit of boogie down because I was born in the Bronx, but I was raised in Newark, Roberto Clemente Elementary School, Barringer High School, which, by the way, just opened a beautiful Law and Public Safety Academy.
Right. Were you there?
I was
I heard about
absolutely
that.
there. I was absolutely there.
Everybody's talking about in the neighborhood. We're from the same neighborhood. I can say that. Go ahead.
I was absolutely there. And so I spoke to those students, and I speak to myself to say, you know, I am from Newark. I was poor. I was Dominican. The expectations for me were maybe finish high school, maybe start working. And so everything that I've gone on to do, that I've been fortunate enough to do, is really just gravy. For the most important people in my life, which were my parents, I was a success when I graduated from Barringer High School. So my career has really been a series of, well, let me see what else I can do, and let me see what else I can do.
So when you deal with issues connected to the opioid crisis,
Yes.
how much of that connects you back to where you come from and who you come from as well?
Well, I love the fact that we have pivoted in terms of how we deal with addiction.
I mean, it's everybody's issue. This is some urban minority thing.
It's everybody's issue, and we are looking at addicts with compassion and with empathy versus long prison sentences. We're at the age where we remember...
Policy mistake for a long time?
Policy mistake for a long time, and not really assessing the damage that it was doing, the damage that it does when people that are nonviolent go away to jail. What does that do to communities? What does that do to families? We are now have pivoted in that direction, and so for me, it is very important to be able to talk about policy decisions and what the impact is, and how do you study whether what you're doing is effective. Now everything is a study, as it should be. We should not be launching into wholesale policy decisions without really thinking about the outcome on people of color, poor people, women, the LGBTQ community, the undocumented, immigrant communities. What is the impact? And I am so fortunate and blessed to be able to sit at tables now where we're discussing policy issues.
With your voice being heard.
With my voice being heard.
For those who say, Prosecutor Valdes, that just let's be tough with them. Let's just be tough. Like that's the policy.
Yes.
You say?
Well, there's a time and place for everything. And I think that if they don't do what they're supposed to do and follow along with the care and the treatment that's being extended, there will be a time to be tough with them. And there is that initial, let's see how we can help this person. Let's see how we can offer treatment that was not available to them before.
Real quick, before I let you out here, President Trump and the issue of law and order.
We haven't seen it in Passaic County.
You don't see it?
I don't see it
The
because...
ICE stuff, the immigration stuff?
I have not seen it.
Really?
And we had a wonderful immigrant integration day recently in the city of Passaic.
What was it like?
It was fantastic because there were so many government agencies that were there, so many people explaining to immigrants what their rights are, what are the systems. Most immigrants come here wanting to provide for their children, wanting to work, wanting to drive, wanting to be productive members of society. Sure, there are outliers that are committing heinous crimes and they should be held accountable for their crimes. But by and large, that's not what we're seeing. We have not seen the ICE raids in Passaic County. I'm not saying that they haven't occurred. They haven't happened in Passaic County.
Prosecutor Norman, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
made Newark proud, Barringer High School proud. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, my
so
friend.
much. Thank you.
I'm Steve Adubato. We're in Newark, Brick City.
Yes.
Back after this.
To watch more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
This is Kevin Corbett, President and CEO of New Jersey Transit. Good to see you.
Thank you, Steve.
Let's do this. The job, how would you describe it? How many people commute every day, by the way?
We have about 950,000 on a weekday, yeah.
Trains,
and buses, about roughly two-thirds bus, one-third train.
You don't need this. Listen, you could watch NJTV News every night and other great broadcasts around, even though none are that good, and find out what's going on a regular basis. Top two issues you face at New Jersey Transit are?
Top two is certainly personnel, qualified personnel operations.
You don't have enough engineers?
That's right.
How did that happen?
It was, people were saying, oh, did you lose them to other railroads? And there was a little bit of that, but mainly it was we stopped training engineers. So as they retired, we weren't training the next generation of backfill.
Because?
I don't...
Can we call that bad planning? Seriously, because they're going to retire.
Yeah, there were people in the organization who knew. The head of our rail ops, those people, they knew, and they would request, and the request for training programs and training classes was rejected for budget reasons or other reasons.
So the personnel's one. But when it comes to the late trains, right, or the trains doesn't come at all, how does that happen? Is that an infrastructure,
a combination
thing?
The number one cause of canceled trains is engineers, lack of engineers. But then you get into the next thing down is mechanical issues, either on the, particularly we're talking about rail. I mean, buses, we move,
sure.
Is another issue, but people judge us a lot by the rail. And there it's the mechanical, either the signal system, catenary problems, which in the Northeast Corridor is Amtrak, actually, we run on.
What's the deal with Amtrak?
Amtrak, they've been, anybody who's in our field, over a 20-year period, you have periods where you get some funding and then you're starved, you get these cycles. So Amtrak went through a rough period, and rather than going at war with each other, the last year really spent a lot of time focusing on where can we pool our resources, work together, and we've made a lot of progress with Amtrak last year. But they've got that's a 100-year-old system they're operating.
It's interesting. You've talked to commuters, and by the way, we want to make sure in the future we have one of the commuter advocates here talking about these issues as well. How frustrating is it for you to see how frustrating it is for commuters every day?
I'm a commuter every day. I've been commuting on the M&E for 20-plus years.
What's the M&E?
Morrison, Essex,
okay.
from coming in from Morristown. And I've seen where the system started going downhill, and you feel it. I think a lot of the frustration is, even over this year, our metrics have become significantly better. Long way to go, but we're
What does that mean, the metrics?
Our on-time performance or canceled trains are down. October this last month was, we're down 41, cancellations were 41% than last year. So, our on-time performance is up 3%, up to almost 92% on time. Far from where we want to be. Rail industry, I would say, is 95% on-time performance to where you want to be, if not higher. But the accumulated frustration of a lot of riders, it's, there's the tree falls on the catenary, or there's a suicide or something. As a commuter, you realize once in a while these things happen. You sort of, driving, it has its downfalls too. So, but it's a cumulative effect year after year, and you're tired of being, BS. When are we really going to see some results? Where's the light at the end of the tunnel kind of thing?
By the way, if you're listening on the audio side, Kevin Corbett is the president and CEO of New Jersey Transit. Let me ask you this. We've done a lot of programming on the American Dream Project, that little initiative out on Route 3, right, in the Middle East. A lot of the discussion beyond where they are, where they're not, when it's opening, what's opening, et cetera, is the discussion around the role of New Jersey Transit in moving people in and out of American Dream. Where are we with that, and where are we not?
Yeah, I think where we are, certainly number one priority for us is taking care of our regular commuters. So our basic service, we have to do that right. But when we look at the economic potential and how do we help the state's economy, it's not transportation for transportation's sake, that gets into how do we make sure that MetLife Stadium is successful, and then how do we help American Dream be successful?
Yeah, but okay, so...
and we're part of the American Dream solution, but not all of it. They have a comprehensive transportation.
After the Super Bowl, right? We had that situation with the Super Bowl, tons of people that are waiting. How much does that adversely, negatively impact the, quote, reputation and brand of New Jersey Transit when a very public crisis like that happens?
Oh, I think there's no doubt it hurts the brand, and it's not good for the state's reputation either. You want to host events, you want to be successful. That was years ago, and there's a whole batch of post-mortem on that predates me. But the one thing we did when we had a problem with one of our programs early last summer, with one concert or one event. We worked with MetLife. People say, okay, what do we need to do to make sure that that doesn't happen again? How do we get it right? Part of it is scheduling trains, just like airline pilots, train pilots, train engineers, time out. So we had to make sure that we adjusted the schedule to make sure we had the back end covered for trains, and we more heavily invested in bus up front so that we could really ramp up better. And since then, we've had a great experience with MetLife.
A couple of things I'm curious about. State funding for New Jersey Transit. We actually had Senator Patrick Dignan is the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee as we speak. There's also a select Senate committee, legislative committee, looking at New Jersey Transit that the Senate President, Steve Sweeney, will in fact be chairing. But I'm curious, in that interview with Senator Dignan, who chairs the Transportation Committee, he was very critical of the Christie administration in terms of state dollars dedicated to New Jersey Transit or not. And he said much of the problem is because of a lack of funding over those 8 years. Do you buy that argument?
Yeah, who to blame is one thing, but there's no doubt that there was over $500 million, $500 million a year in capital funding that was taken away to cover operating expenses.
Explain that to folks, capital versus operational funding.
So instead of buying rail cars, like if you're riding a 40-year-old rail car that the type with the bouncy seats, those were meant to be replaced, 10 years ago. That's capital. So that $500 million that would have bought new rail cars and new buses was taken away to cover our operating expenses, paying salaries, et cetera.
What happens when that happens?
Well, just think of, think of Havana with those old American cars, that are from the 1960s, and you're trying to keep them running. We have 50-year-old train engines, 40-year-old rail cars. So the breakdowns are more frequent, all those kind of problems. So that really, there's no doubt that funding was critical.
Sorry for interrupting,
Sure.
President Corbett, I'm curious about this. What the heck is the problem? I'm a student of communication. Why it happens, why it doesn't happen, why the message sent doesn't equal message received. Here's the question. Why is it so difficult to communicate to commuters if the train's not coming, when the train's not coming or coming? What's the problem with communication? Well, you can't blame that on Christie.
No, and the two things. One is communication. If you look at, like an airline pilot, if you're having a problem on the train, your focus is on making sure you fly the plane, not communicating. And what happens on the operational level, they're going to the, on the rail side mainly.
Sure.
You're going back to the center saying, hey, our trains.
What about the people waiting?
Well, that's the issue. By FRA rules, conductors are not allowed to have cell phones. It's a violation of safety rules. So the people on the trains nowadays, they get more information on the cell phone than the conductors have. So
Shouldn't we adjust those regulations based on the way people communicate today, based on social media?
I think you can do it safely, and we're working with the FRA and
the FRA is the
Federal Railway Administration in Washington. But if you look at Amtrak, for example, if you get your ticket, they scan it. But those devices also get communication from headquarters that say this is what's going on ahead of you, so they can communicate that. Yes, we are. We're in the process of doing that.
Come back 6 months from now.
We'll
give us an update.
Yeah, we'll do.
This has been Kevin Corbett, President and CEO of New Jersey Transit. We thank you for coming in and answering these and other tough questions. You've been out there on a regular basis, and we wish you, but more importantly, frankly, the folks who rely on New Jersey Transit, all the best.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you. Stay there. I'm Steve Adubato. We'll be right back.
To watch more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
We're pleased to be joined by Mike DuHaime, Republican strategist and partner at Mercury. Good to see you, Mike.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Good. A lot of stuff to talk about. We're taping on the 12th of November. Big picture first. We have no idea how this impeachment inquiry is going to play out. What do you think the biggest challenge facing the president and his White House is right now?
I think regardless of the outcome of the impeachment, if there's a vote and if it goes to the Senate, I think it looks bad in terms of the politics of this. It looks like he tried to gain some sort of political advantage through what happened there. So regardless of the outcome, with Ukraine and the investigation into the Biden family, even if it's not impeachable, it obviously is dominating the headlines. It looks like it was not done necessarily for the country's best interest. And he's certainly not talking about the economy or tax cuts or anything else that might be positive for his campaign. So it's just dominating the news in a way that never lets the president get out any type of positive message.
Mike, you've managed presidential campaigns for Republicans. You're very close to Governor Christie, very important advisor. How tough is it for Republicans these days with Trump as the president in terms of if they do disagree or have something they want to say, whether they say it privately, publicly, or not at all?
It's very difficult because the president is very popular with the base of the Republican Party, still 80, 90% extreme popularity with the base of the party, but at least in New Jersey and many other states in the Northeast, unpopular with independent voters. So it's very difficult to straddle that line. We saw that last week in the legislative elections in New Jersey. For the first time, really, since Trump became president, the Republicans were able to separate themselves a little bit and have some success, folks like John Bramnick and others, in the suburbs being able to distinguish themselves a bit from the national party.
It's interesting, and by the way, if you're listening on the audio side or our podcast, this is Mike DuHaime, longtime Republican strategist, managed statewide national campaigns, and the head of Mercury, one of the top agencies in the state. Question about John Bramnick. Yeah. He's coming in today. Bramnick is the leader of the Republican Party in the Assembly. Moderate, independent thinker. He's been on this set, Mike, been critical of the president.
Yeah.
But he's also very critical of Governor Murphy. In his race, which is I don't want to get in the weeds, our great friend Michael Aaron will help break down those campaigns a lot better than we do. Independent, moderate Republican in a district like that, Union County, a couple other counties, what does that represent for New Jersey and the nation in terms of the kind of Republican he is?
Well, I think it's a good thing for him and for Republicans who aren't afraid to be independent-minded, aren't afraid to be centrist. That is a district that Hillary Clinton won by 10 points. Bob Menendez won. Malinowski won it last year for Congress. Governor Murphy won it. So that's a district that's been trending Democrat, has about 10,000 more Democrats than Republicans.
So how did Bramnick win?
Bramnick was, Republicans stuck with Bramnick because he had a very strong fiscal message, very much took on Governor Murphy talking about high taxes, and John Bramnick being the leader in the Assembly, pushing back on high taxes, understanding this is a tax-sensitive state. And he also wasn't somebody who just disagreed with the president all the time. He was somebody who, when he thought the president was right, for example, on North Korea, he said he thought the president was right. If he thought the president was wrong on something like gun control, he was able to say, I think the president's wrong. So voters in New Jersey, especially in an off-year election, understand the difference between federal elections and state elections and are willing to listen to the candidates. And he was able to distinguish himself. And obviously, for the most part, independents voted for him and Republicans in large part voted for him. He even got challenged from the right, and the candidates from the right got less than a percentage point of the vote.
Yeah. Governor Phil Murphy, at the midpoint of his 4-year term, grade him.
I would say probably incomplete still at this point. I think he's someone
What's he done well?
Well, what's he done well? He's obviously pushing New Jersey toward a more progressive agenda, which is what he wanted to do. What he's done well is I think he's tapped into national Democrat issues in a way that's helped him stay popular. But he's been unable to work with the legislature. So even though
Why do you think?
Well, it's a personal animosity, I think, between himself and the Senate president and leadership.
Hold on,
Yeah.
Mike. You believe beyond policy matters, beyond the fact that the governor wants to increase taxes on millionaires, and right now Senate President Steve Sweeney says it's not the right time. Beyond the fact that they have very different views on how to deal with public employee unions and the pension crisis in the state. You think it's personal on some level?
I think at some level. I think you outlined correctly that there's an ideological difference.
There definitely is.
The governor is quite far to the left, and Steve Sweeney and Craig Coughlin have much more centrist caucuses. Yep. But beyond that, there is no trust level between the leadership. And you saw in the past, Governor Christie and the Democratic leadership were able to work together on some areas of common interest. Now, there's a lot of places where they disagree, and a lot more difference in the ideology between Governor Christie and Steve Sweeney than Steve Sweeney and Governor Murphy. But they were able to come together on issues where they agreed because there was a trust level. There are issues that the leadership and the legislature and the governor agree on where they can't get forward. For example, legalization of marijuana, all three profess they want to do that. I don't think New Jersey is as far left as San Francisco or Seattle, so I think there's pushback from Democrats in that area. But they profess to agree on it, yet they've been unable to do it for 2 years. I think that's because there's not a trust level of how to move forward.
By the way, we should disclose that Mercury is one of the many underwriters of our work in public policy programming at the Caucus Educational Corporation. Let me try this one. You and I have had this conversation offline as well as on the air to some extent, and you and your good friend Julie Roginski write a regular weekly column in
the Star Ledger
and NJ.com. Yep. One of the themes that you and Julie, who's been with us many times, check out our previous program, she's terrific. You talk about tone and tenor. You talk about the fact that friends, family, I don't know about your family, Mike, but in my family, we're taping this around the holidays. We will not talk politics. We try not to bring Trump up because people have very different views on it.
Yep.
And I've had longtime friends who I can't talk to because we can't respectfully disagree. Is it just my family? Just my friends?
I think the tone and tenor of politics is nasty these days, and it starts in Washington. It's very nasty in Washington, and it's become too personal, and it really shouldn't be. And we just talked about Governor Murphy. I have a great deal of respect for Governor Murphy. The fact that he, if he wanted to, could retire and go live a very wonderful, easy life, but he's decided to put his money on the line, put his own personality on the line, put his family in the political
So why does he
eye.
have to be demonized? Sorry for interrupting, Mike. We're listening. If you're listening on the audio side podcast, Mike DuHaime, who's a Republican strategist partner at Mercury. Question: so why is it that someone disagrees with Murphy on tax policy or whatever it is, or Ocasio-Cortez or Bernie Sanders, whoever, those who are on the left?
Yeah.
Why do they have to be demonized if they're somehow less than American?
I don't think they have to be.
But you don't.
Well, yes, I do not.
Many do.
Many do.
Including
I think we just,
the president.
We just have to try to, I think all of us in our own way, have to conduct ourselves in a way that hopefully leads by example, in a way that does that. Like I said, I have great respect for the governor and the legislative leaders and their willingness to do things. I think people who are willing to put themselves out, even if I disagree with their policies, I respect them for their willingness to engage, for their desire to make the country or the state a better place. And I think we just have to do the best we can to lead by example. It's a contact sport. It's tough. It doesn't mean we don't say mean and nasty things to each other.
But tear each other down, destroy their reputations?
I try not to do that.
That's not you.
I vote. You can still be successful.
Is that hard for you to be in a party? By the way, Democrats as well.
Yeah.
Is it hard for you to be in a party where the president, the leader of the party, let's just say, engages a fair amount in this?
Yes, I don't agree with some of the rhetoric. I don't agree with the demonization of individuals or obviously certain classes of people that the president does that. And I think we have to stand up and say that he's wrong when he does that. And I've been unafraid to do that.
By the way, check out, to tell folks when they can find the Mike DuHaime, Julie Roginski piece.
It's every Friday, printed in the Star-Ledger, and usually goes online Friday or Saturday.
You enjoy doing that?
I love it. It's great fun.
And by the way, Mike and Julie don't agree on much, but they're always civil, respectful, and take the other person's point of view and try to beat it on the merits. And Mike, I thank you for joining us.
Thanks,
and
Steve.
Having, as always, a civil conversation.
Appreciate it.
Stay right
Thanks
there.
for having me, Steve.
This is State of Affairs. We're coming to you from the NJTV studio here in Newark, New Jersey. Catch you next time.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by Holy Name Medical Center, New Jersey Resources, NJIT, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, the New Jersey Education Association, International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, and by Community Food Bank of New Jersey. Promotional support provided by Insider NJ and by NJ Advance Media.
When it comes to you and your family's health care, transparency is key. At Holy Name Medical Center, we believe in creating an environment where patients can be educated and informed so they can get the most out of their health care. As New Jersey's healthcare industry continues to evolve and change, Holy Name remains committed to providing patients with high-quality, accessible, and affordable health care.